Okay, this week's demo is going to be a little bit of a riff. So, apologies for my appearance. I just came in from a hike this morning and the weather was about 20 degrees. And I just spent some time with my thoughts. The mind map that you see in front of you is a good representation of some of the things that I was thinking about. And hopefully, I'll be able to quickly show some current work just to show some progress that I've made really over the course of this month. I think would be really interesting, and a difference between some of the work that I was doing about a year ago. So the topic that came to mind as I was listening to a podcast while I hiked this morning was all around AI replacing jobs and so forth. At least that was one of the sub-threads in the conversation. And I did a really quick, I wouldn't even call it research. I was looking into the words replacement versus displacement. And it made me think about how what I'm really trying to do right now is find my place during displacement. And if you see in the mind map here, I did draw sort of a section down here. The difference between displacement and replacement are pretty significant if you start to break down what these words mean. Displacement is a lateral motion, meaning you're being moved or pushed somewhere else from where you once used to be, versus replacement. You're no longer found in the same place. It's not a lateral move. The original place has been taken by something else. And I think displacement is a better word, or at least the word that I choose to focus on with everything that's going on. And so how do I find my own place during times of displacement with a lot of the advancements in artificial intelligence and its impact on our society and culture? And it's basically untangling everything that we know. So here are a few things that I lead with to help me find my own place during displacement. The first is curiosity. So keeping an open mind, open ears, listening, and keeping my eyes wide open, paying attention to things. And that means I need to determine what I really need to know, what's important to me. I can't know everything. I can't stay on top of every nuance. So what do I feel like I need to know? And understanding that there are lots of other people in the world that are even more curious than I am. So they might do some of the heavy lifting. If they're trusted sources, you might follow somebody on social media. You might know somebody who has a great podcast, and they're doing a lot of the heavier lifting while you're busy with the rest of your life. And so you can find people to be curious about and see what they're curious about. And so I think that's like a force multiplier. The next piece is experimentation. I talk about this to myself all the time, like how important it is to experiment, and the idea of testing to learn, trying things out, to see what you can learn, what you know, what you have learned from the experience. And that means being willing to break things and fail and, kind of dust yourself off and keep moving forward. And also tracking your results. And it doesn't always have to be metrics. I like to keep a running tally of things that I'm creating so I can see the progression of where I started when I learned a new skill, with digital or traditional media, and then, where I'm at now and how much better things have gotten. The next stop along this way during displacement is paying my attention. Where am I paying my attention? That means making time to grow, to learn, and experiment with things. Time doesn't just magically show up. You sometimes have to shift priorities or say no to a lot of things to leave space in your life to pursue the things that, the areas that you want to grow. At least that's for me. I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but this is how I look at the world. And that also means investing in my future. So I know that things are not constant. They will change. And I need to be able to spend that time, pay that attention forward, and invest that time to reap the benefits of it down the road. And another point that I'll make in there is that I try to fit my attention around things that I'm learning about or areas that I'm trying to grow in between the important things that I'm doing in life. So if I have to drop one of my daughters off at basketball practice, if I have an hour's time, I may go for a hike and put on a podcast and learn while I'm, instead of just sitting around or, driving home and then coming back, try to fit that into the time in between things as an example. Applying what I learn is important during displacement. And that means I have to demonstrate by actually doing things. It's not just sitting around and thinking about things and hypothesizing and wondering and daydreaming. It's actually making some things, doing some things, creating some things, whether it's a creative activity or a practical skill that I'm trying to develop. And so the way that I frame this up is, how might I leverage my natural interests or talents to fuel the action of doing? So sometimes I will try to learn a new skill and I'll apply something that I'm already naturally curious about to that skill so that I'm having a little bit of fun while I'm learning, and it isn't just the laborious task of learning the new skill. I'm actually easing the pain of learning a new skill while doing something that I already naturally enjoy or that I'm already pretty good at. So, doubling down on those. It also means humbly admitting that I have yet to learn many things. And I think the yet to learn is a way that you give yourself permission, at least I do, around it's okay that I don't know this. It's not unsurmountable. It isn't something that I will never be able to learn or I don't have the aptitude to learn, but it's something that I have yet to learn. So the trick is to figure out, how will I learn this in the way that I can learn it or that I understand how to learn it. And there's always a bit of the excitement of a beginner's mind when you do that, knowing that you're new to this thing, you don't know all the avenues yet, and you're really starting to make sense of the things that you don't know in that space. The next step along the way, evolving my skills. I try to pay attention to what skills are really rising to the top. So that's just kind of having a good read on, particularly with all this movement around artificial intelligence, what are the skill sets that are really important that other bright people are saying are the important skills to have? For a hot minute, it was around prompt engineering, and I think that's still relevant, but the tools are getting so much easier to use with natural language processing that, and we're getting further away from computational language and more into describing things the way that humans do that, I don't know, the jury's still out. I don't know if prompt engineering will really be, you certainly do a fair amount of prompt engineering with the tools that we have today, but maybe we will just be able to talk at a box and have things magically happen and worry far less about translating our thoughts and ideas over to something that a computer or a model, let's say, can understand. I like to take this approach in my life that any new skill that I'm picking up has the potential to be far greater value down the road. So I never know when I'll call upon that skill. And I've found myself in many situations where I might have been messing around and playing around with something and picking up sort of a baseline understanding of it and the talent to be able to repeat that process. And it comes in handy down the road. So that goes hand in hand with experimentation. You never know when something that you're experimenting with will come in handy down the road. I also like to think about any advancement in a skill that I'm trying to pick up is better than no advancement at all. So even if it feels like I tried something new and it went horribly wrong, that's still a greater understanding of how that thing works or doesn't work than I had before I started to experiment. So last but not least, dealing with my reality. Um, all this stuff with artificial intelligence and the pace that it is escalating is already happening. We're already in it. I went through very early on last year a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, many moments of fear, freak out moments. Maybe that's relatable to you. Maybe you don't pay as much attention to this as perhaps I have, but um, I acknowledge that those feelings are real, and I've sort of found a way to move through them. Some of them I'm still carrying with me, but it's already happening. So I have to get over those initial feelings and find my way through to the things that are actionable, that are healthy for me to be thinking about. And what do I need to do maybe to continue to get on the other side of some of those feelings and emotions? I like to think about where should I be in less than a year. I used to think about my career and my talent and my capabilities in like big picture decades and where do I want to be 10 years from now? That's no longer relevant for me. Now I think about 6 to 8 months to a year. Where do I want to be? And it's not fun to sit down and think about all those things. And it probably causes a lot of stress, like it does in my life. But I think the healthy thing to do is to just kind of have a loose plan is better than no plan at all. And so I like to think that way from time to time. And the last piece, which is an important puzzle, is if you're thinking about your life and your place in all this potential displacement that we may experience, nobody will ever care more about your own future than you do. Certainly, we're fortunate enough to have people in our lives that look out for us, but I think at the end of the day, we are the ones that care the most. So you sort of owe it to yourself to think about where you would like to be amidst all the displacement. So that's just food for thought. This just gives you a window into sort of how things that I'm absorbing and thinking about can translate to turning those into things that I need to pay attention to and that I need to think about and carve some time out to make sense of and deal with the emotions that go along with it. So I thought I would just share that this morning. One last thing, I want to demo some recent work. So I want to take you back to last summer. And so when I really started experimenting, this was around June of last year, probably started the process before June, but when I uploaded these into this Google photo gallery so that I could keep track of these images. Remember, I said tracking your progress is always important. I was generating, when I talked about marrying my natural interests along with experimentation, I collect records. I enjoy music. I love vinyl records and album art and all that goes along with it and the design trends over the years and things like that. These are some of the images when Stable Diffusion really got on my radar. I was like, what would it look like if I started to use these tools to imagine record stores, something that I was really familiar with, and maybe the people that frequent them that are like me. And so it was just something for me to grab a hold of and experiment with. And a lot of these images, they were really interesting to me to be able to have, based on text prompts, these things generated. And it feels kind of like unreal because I don't know you would ever stack records and products that high to the ceiling, but it started to feel like, oh, these are familiar, or maybe these models are starting to understand a little bit about how record stores look. And I really started to see better images. Now this, it still feels very chaotic. The quality is not very crisp. Many of the people that I was generating in these images were dressed in denim with jewelry. And I was like, that was probably a part of some of the early modeling and some of the images that were fed as source images. But I really tried experimenting pretty heavily with this stuff, and it got pretty exciting to be able to come up with these fantastical images and then go back and fix all the wonky hands that were created. And, we had lots of weird anomalies in the background, and the text was never understood. So you get all these like this gobbledygook. But, it was really exciting new territory for me. So I was just using that as a lens to see, where is this all going? This is fascinating to me that like this stuff can be generated from out of nowhere. I want to contrast that with how insane it's been. Less than a year, because it's not even June yet, right? We're now in the month of February. So it's less than a year's time where I am landing with using these tools. And so here you see some stuff at early February. I was working on different styles and different illustration techniques. And then we really start to see a change in the imagery. And so these portraits that I created allowed for really dynamic camera angles, lots of great detail, prompting a certain look, hair color, ethnicity, stuff that's included in the backgrounds or not included in the backgrounds, much greater control over imagery. And so there's a lot of these women in different scenarios that I was creating. You could probably see some of the influence of hip hop or things like Kraftwerk or early electronica, playing with different styles, with different ethnicities, and just getting to a really interesting place. But you can see from an era, the 60s, the 70s, the 90s, with like rave culture and all these vibrant colors, different moods, different scenarios and so forth, very much like a Daft Punk influenced prompt, I'm sure, went into this one. And we start to get into like a lot of this hyper realism and quality and really rich detail in the background, and clothing showing up, and just really amazing stuff. And that's led to trying to get into more visual storytelling and setting moods with some of these images, and pulling in different scenarios. Like, for example, I really liked the way that these three were interacting with the camera, kind of staring directly at you, versus some of these images are people that are just kind of contemplating or listening to the music, and even starting to delve into different scenarios. I'm really encouraged and have continually been encouraged by some of the diversity of what's available in some of the imagery, with careful prompting and occasionally some Photoshop, generative editing and so forth. I can get to some really interesting places. Like, I never would have imagined being able to generate from thin air imagery of someone who doesn't have sight, being able to express this special moment where they're really enjoying the music. Something I never thought I never would have imagined that I would have the ability to craft some of these visual stories that I'm able to tell in different scenarios and situations and different looks to the people, and control some of the elements. It's beyond my comprehension at times, like what we are able to do. And I hear people say this often, this is like the worst of it. It will only continue to get better. So 6 months from now, I can't even imagine what will be possible. But just trying to capture these different moments. I love the sunlight. I love being able to kind of control some of the details of the people and their look, their hairstyle, their physicalities, different situations, one kind of dark and industrial and kind of creepy, but, like a really interesting way to bend some of the language and descriptions and prompts. So I thought I would share these. But they continue to just get better and better. And I can kind of time shift back to the 90s when I used to go to record stores, and this very much would have felt like a record store on the Ohio State University campus, where you could see High Street out the window and lots of college students buying used records and things like that. So I've been playing with this particular style and trying to get similar poses and control what the people are wearing and what some of the situations are in the background. And it just kind of blows my mind, playing with camera angles and different focus types, and like a really distorted, almost like fisheye lens view that make the subject of the image sort of the hero in that situation, and capturing different light types during different parts of the day, like golden hour, early morning, you name it. Just being able to imagine things that I would never have the possibility, I'll give this a minute to focus, through careful prompting and ideas and exploring like little rabbit holes. How do you do this unless you're an incredibly talented airbrush artist or a photographer with a really big budget to try to figure out how to shoot this? So it's just fun to explore this. And you watching this video, you may be amongst the only people that have seen these images. I haven't sold these images. I haven't used them for anything yet. It's just a part of my process, and continually exploring and getting different feelings and moods and moments, capturing these moments. Not unlike what I'm sure photographers experience when they're thinking about a particular shoot, but trying to play the creative director in these situations and bring these ideas to life. This one is just amazing. I mean, I never would have imagined, once this comes into focus here in just a second, bring all this rich detail and these ideas together in one place around a very specific record collector in Bangladesh, and being able to play with all the things that are happening in this image is just amazing. And imagining someone over in Amsterdam on a houseboat that collects records, and kind of capturing the spirit of this type of scene, and picking someone in a very lush home, well decorated, very this would be a great place to go Airbnb, I'm sure, and stay there and listen to some records. But so that's largely what I wanted to cover. I wanted to share some thoughts around displacement, and I just wanted to share how amazing the progression has been over just the past several months to see where things are going with generative AI.